In this video, we're going to talk about Pistol Whip and this, the Hyper Blaster from Hypercam. I'm going to run through how to make this work in Pistol Whip and also my impressions after using it. But before I do that, if you're new here, my name's Togay and I make virtual reality content here on YouTube in this giant green room behind me. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely consider subscribing, it really helps the channel out. The Hyper Blaster takes two parts to work: the Hyper Blaster itself and an HTC Vive tracker. The Hyper Blaster itself is fairly cheap at around $60 US, but when joined to a Vive tracker, the total cost comes up to around $150 US. This is a little expensive, but if you already have the Vive tracker, then the extra $60 for the Hyper Blaster isn't bad value. Now, Pistol Whip does not have native support for this controller, so there are some steps we'll need to take to make this work. First of all, the Vive tracker needs to be reflashed as a controller, and we'll be using a guide from RageSack to do this. I'll leave a link to RageSack's guide in the description. Just follow the section reflashing to a controller, and then you're ready to attach the Vive tracker to the gun. The next thing you'll need is OpenVR Input Emulator. You'll be using this to make the virtual gun line up with the real world gun. I'll leave a link to this in the description. You'll be using the device offset feature to make it all line up. Live was a really useful tool for setting these offsets. As long as you have an accurate Live calibration using a Vive Wand or Index controller, you can have the Live viewfinder and device offsets window open at the same time, while Pistol Whip is running, and make adjustments until it lines up perfectly. If you don't have Live, then these are the settings that I use. They should work perfectly fine for you too, so I'll also leave these in the description. Now, is it actually any good in Pistol Whip? Straight off the bat, the biggest issue is the haptics. The Hyper Blaster does have haptics, but in Pistol Whip, they just do a long buzz whenever you pull the trigger. It just feels really weird. I could not find a way to make this any better, so I just ended up disabling the haptics in Pistol Whip. If you have any idea on how this can be improved, do let me know in the comments. Aside from the haptics, the Hyper Blaster feels great. The balance could be a little better with the Vive tracker sitting on top there. It's just a little top heavy, but overall the feel is great. I find the feel of the gun matches the appearance of the in-game gun quite well. The trigger is binary compared to the analog trigger on the Vive Wands and Index controllers, and has a loud clicky feel. I found this made it a little bit easier to time my shots in Pistol Whip, but for me the main advantage was just holding a gun that so closely matched the in-game gun. In terms of battery life, it's all running off the Vive tracker. There's no additional battery there. It should be around about 4 to 5 hours. So far I've used it about 2 hours and I haven't needed to charge it yet. I guess my only gripe here is that because of the design of the Hyper Blaster, you need to remove the Vive tracker in order to plug the charge cable in. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also leave a like if you found this video helpful. I'll leave you with some gameplay of the Hyper Blaster in action in Pistol Whip, and I'll see you next time.